Everybody deserves a safe, warm place to sleep at night year-round. We haven't had that, not enough of it. And this winter, I'm proud to say that the availability of a safe, reliable space will be a reality for more people, more of our unsheltered neighbors, thanks to a collaborative winter response. And that plan came together in part from Salt Lake City, but really with the partnership of the state of Utah, Salt Lake County, and mayors from across the county, our sister cities in this county. And right now, we're happy to be announcing another expansion of Salt Lake City's partnership, in particular with the state of Utah, to create new and additional services for our neighbors who are living unsheltered. And today, we announce this next step in our Unsheltered Resources Network. It's in relationship with the State Office of Homeless Services, financially and in partnership of collaboration in how it will operate. And thanks very much to city funding that's been appropriated by the City Council, most of whom are here with us today. We're piloting a temporary shelter community. Right here where we're standing in downtown Salt Lake City, this parcel of land is owned by our city's redevelopment agency at 300 South 600 West. It's our intent to launch this temporary shelter community in November, and it will host up to 50 individuals. The first phase, which is the land that we're standing on, will run for 6 months. That's approximately through April 30th. And then it will move directly into phase 2. This is a small-scale, temporary, non-congregate shelter community that will be facilitated here in phase 1, and it will ultimately fold into phase 2, which is a more permanent non-congregate shelter program at another location that will be managed by the State Office of Homeless Services beginning in 2024. The temporary shelter community will not only provide critical relief, it will center compassion and humanity in every action, and it will be in every phase and initiative that we take. That will continue to be the top priority. Evidence-based practices and other models from around the country give us great confidence that this temporary shelter will work well here. Our phased approach is strategic because it allows us to thoughtfully and effectively implement something that we have never seen and we have never done in the state of Utah. I've said from day one in my office that this is not an undertaking that any city in Utah can manage alone with zero mental and behavioral health dollars. And today we're standing here as a result of a partnership and a mutual desire by everyone to do more to help our unsheltered neighbors. In my 10 years in public service, I've visited quite a few places to study how they achieve deeply affordable housing and different types of shelter addressing homelessness. I've been to Miami, Reno, Pittsburgh, Seattle, Portland, Chicago, Cincinnati, and others. We've looked closely in these places and others at what has worked and what has not worked well. Most importantly, we've tried to learn why they work. What elements make a given approach successful and what elements undermine those intentions of success? Because no matter what anyone says, it's never been as simple as just finding a piece of land and saying, have at it. Success means security for the residents and for the surrounding community, and to ensure that the sites don't become magnets for crime and exploitation. Success means an excellent provider and ensuring that there are sufficient support services to help the unhoused residents transition out of a shelter here and into permanent supportive housing. Success means that more people experiencing homelessness have more dignified and trauma-informed options, and we're committed to that success here. As these conversations have progressed with our partners, I've told my team if we're going to do this, it had to be done right, it had to be done sustainably and safely for residents and for our neighbors in this community, and that it must be carried out in partnership with the state of Utah, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. Because out of sight, out of mind is not a solution, and it is not humane. those who will be served here are mothers and fathers and brothers and sisters, and they're members of our community. We need more options for shelter and housing to give every resident the greatest chance of success. And though the city cannot and should not shoulder the state's homelessness crisis alone, we are wholeheartedly and enthusiastically partnering on this model. We needed the state government to be at the table with us, and because of Governor Cox and this man right here, that's what's happening. Wayne, I'm proud to be a partner in this work with you, and I thank you. My office's community liaisons, many of them are here right now. They've been working with this community to ensure that we have a smooth transition into not only introducing that this community will be here, but that we can welcome this temporary shelter pilot when it comes. And thank you to the liaison team who are here today. I know that following this press conference, they'll be going back out immediately to work with our community. Effective implementation of this pilot will include an intentional plan for safety and security. That includes support from Salt Lake City Police Department, our downtown ambassadors, Volunteers of America, and other community-based units. I look forward to working closely in the coming couple of weeks with the State Office of Homeless Services as they pursue a qualified provider. And that's who will operate the day-to-day services on the site. A request for proposals will be led by Wayne Niederhauser's team, and he's going to share more about that process in just a moment. But at the same time, as the RFP is out for the provider, we're going to begin work preparing this site. We're 100% committed to making sure that this community is safe for the residents who come here and for the neighbors around. And we are excited to prove here that this model can work in the state of Utah with the right partnerships and the right leadership. I want to conclude by expressing my deep gratitude for our many partners that we have who are helping to make homelessness rare, brief, and non-recurring. Mayor Wilson and the Salt Lake County team, the philanthropic community, the service providers, the state leaders like Governor Cox and Wayne Niederhauser. We couldn't make this amazing progress without these kind of partnerships, and I'll turn this time now over to Wayne Niederhauser.
Thank you very much, Mayor. It is a pleasure to be here today. It's an exciting time. This is something we've envisioned for quite some time and have been planning on it probably for over a year. We've looked at different models across the country. This non-congregate shelter units. These would be individual units for singles and potentially couples. That's the long-term vision. So this winter, our first step now is the first step was to find some property. And so we're standing on that property today. It's an exciting time to find a place for us to implement this plan. And the next step that we'll be taking is to select a provider. So the state and the city have been working collaboratively on a RFP, request for proposal, and we'll release that request for proposal next week, first part of next week. Applicants will have about approximately 10 days to respond to that request for proposal. And we will then, with a team of qualified individuals who are experts, will evaluate those proposals and select a provider, an operator, probably in about mid-October. So we encourage qualified providers to apply next week. So we hope to have a lot of interest, and we'll select that provider in mid-October. The funding for this is Salt Lake City, as has been said, will be providing funding, and the state will be providing funding to get us through this winter and into the spring. The state will be acquiring the shelter units, and we've been working on that. So we'll have those units secured here in the next couple of weeks. We plan on having 50 places for 50 people. And each one of these units, it's 4 walls, a door that you can lock. Your personal belongings will be safe. Your person will be safe. It will be heated and cooled. There'll be a heating and cooling unit for every one of these non-congregate units. There'll be lighting, outlets, electricity. And then the plan will be to have a more permanent site for these units. We'll move them next spring to a more permanent state that the state will provide. And next steps for that is we will be identifying a piece of property, the Office of Homeless Services, this fall. Following that, we will then send out a request for a proposal for a more permanent site, a more permanent operator. Our anticipated opening will be in the spring, as probably we'll ramp down this. These units are mobile, so we'll be able to take them from here and move them to the more permanent site. And we'll also, as the Office of Homeless Services, work to create long-term funding for operations. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Victoria Petro. I am Vice Chair of the Salt Lake City Council, and I represent District 1, which is the Rose Park area. And I'm feeling incredibly emotional as I stand here, because since day one when I came in, making sure that our city responds to a humanitarian crisis with as many diverse, unique responses as there are reasons for homelessness has been a priority for me. And a sanctioned camp has been one of my priorities. I'm so glad that when I got here to this position, I was greeted by Councilmember Valdemoros and got to join with Councilmember Pui, who share my passion, and advocated for a sanctioned campground. And Councilmember Dugan and the others saw our vision, saw the need, and joined in. I'm thankful to our mayor, who heard us repeatedly, worked with us, who built the coalition with the state so that my idea to just find the piece of ground and go at it wasn't the failure that it was destined to be if I had done that. Nothing about this crisis is easy. The experience of it must be excruciating. The closest I've ever gotten is as a case manager. But the experience of it has to be one of the toughest crucibles of modern life. It's also tough to live in District 1 and to walk along our river trail and to see people struggling and have no individual capacity to respond to it in the magnitude needed. We've taken a deep dive down into this crisis and we're underwater on it. I believe that with this, we've touched down and are pushing back up. We know this isn't a silver bullet. We know that there is no such thing as a silver bullet when it comes to a humanitarian crisis, and this homelessness crisis in particular. But to have leadership that is committed to not just compassionately, but strategically, sustainably, in ways that are fiscally responsible and feasible, ensure that we're not creating dependencies where we can't make good on them. I'm proud to be part of this team. I know there are so many of you who call out, write to me, advocate on a nearly daily basis. And thank you for your passion to keep the important thing centered, which is the dignity of all Utahns and Salt Lakers. I'm excited for the opportunity to be part of a solution to a crisis that is unlike anything we've seen in our lifetime. I'm excited for dignified living conditions. I'm excited to an end to the cycle of chaos that people are forced to live in the current handling. I'm excited for a partnership that has never been seen between city and state to create a sustainable network of responsiveness so that we don't find ourselves here again in a short amount of time. When I do my consulting work that's not with the council, I always tell the people that I'm working with that you have to celebrate every success and hold yourself to the standard of excellence for what is yet to come. And so that's what this is. This is a moment to celebrate success. But please don't confuse celebrating success with resting on laurels. There is a continuation towards an outcome of excellence that centers the dignity of all Utahns and Salt Lakers, specifically attending to the dignity needed for people who are experiencing homelessness. And I'm proud to be a part of it, and thank you all for allowing us this moment.
Hi, my name is Carlton Christensen. I'm chairman of the Utah Transit Authority, and we're the neighbors immediately to the west of this site. No issue facing our community is one entity alone's responsibility. It's one that we work together collaboratively on, and transportation certainly is part of that, and transit in particular is an important role that helps as we address some of these issues. In most recent years, the Utah Transit Authority's worked to lower our pass programs, making them much more affordable for our providers, as well as individuals who have the need. Our travel trainers work collectively with these groups to help individuals who, not too surprisingly, aren't sure how to use our system to get to important services, both medical and as well as employment. And we will continue to work collaboratively with each and every effort. And as an agency, we're grateful to be included in this opportunity to be able to work with what will soon be our new neighbors, but more importantly, with those assisting them and trying to help accomplish the common good that we need in our community and that we are working diligently to overcome. We appreciate the opportunity to be reflective of the community that we serve and are grateful for this solution coming this winter. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Carlton. Thanks, Carlton and Councilmember and Wayne. Media, any questions from you?
How was this particular location chosen? Because I know there's been an effort to kind of spread out the homeless resources in the city, especially with that change to the city ordinance, the shelter ordinance.
Yeah, this is not operating because it'll use a temporary land use, and that's an authority that the city council can grant. It lasts 180 days, and so being open through the projected end of April assumes a November opening, and that's the extent of that land use authority. And so it's not like it's going through a rezone process where the homeless resource center zoning would apply. It's because it's a temporary use. We knew we wanted this open as soon as possible, and we saw that the state's efforts were not going to be able to open in time for this winter. And so we started looking at property that the city owns and controls, including RDA-owned property. And this was the location that felt that we could most efficiently get the services to, including power, which we still have to do. And we've already begun working with Rocky Mountain Power to do that. But the site is not ready yet, but it is one of the most ready locations that we could find that has sufficient space for all of those units that will be brought in. Okay.
Is this considered low barrier, or how is this going to be operating?
Yeah, that's a great question, and we do envision this as a low barrier shelter option. I think it's important that we mention this won't operate the way that a homeless resource center operates, where you come up to the front gate to gain entry. It will operate more like a housing location, and that placement in a unit here will not happen through the front door of the community. It will happen through the homeless resource centers or case managers or housing locators. Go on.
Yeah, so a quick follow-up to that. So, from what I understand, these residents will be staying in these pods consistently, like will be considered their pods, or how are they being identified, and how long is their stay in the pods during this time?
These are transitional housing units. And so no one is intended to stay indefinitely. We're trying to expedite their connection with permanent supportive housing. And when we bring an operator on board, they will help to design the specifics about how long people can be here, but it's not envisioned, and it is not our intention that there is a limit to the amount of time one can stay in these units, but that they are transitional. Is that good? Okay, community member and then media, and yes.
Your Honor, I have a question directed at you and the housing and the chief of police. My name is Donald Neal Vogt Jr. I am AK known as the First Cowboy. I came out here in 1983 and was on staff at the Travelers Aid Shelters, and I was there from 1983 to 1998. I have been homeless 5 times. This is the 5th time. The only other question I have is, there are 7,000 and better homeless here in Salt Lake City alone, okay? And there's no place to go. I keep hearing from some of your officers, shelter, shelter, shelter. The shelters are all full. You have people who have their everything they own with them. And they're afraid of it being stolen, which happens time and time and time again. With the abatements, especially the one that occurred yesterday, a lot of people lost their stuff, mainly because they were either at work or they were away. Fortunately, I was not one of them, and I had heads up warning when it was going to happen. My question is, this property that you're going to do, you have better than 7,500 homeless people, okay? And better than 1/4 of those are handicapped, disabled, on Social Security, and can't find a place to live. Why are the rents so high? And every time there are entire families out here who are working 2 and 3 jobs, can't get an apartment, and they're living on the streets. Okay, that's pathetic. In 1983, when I came out here, I was dealing with 654 homeless people, some of which wanted to be that way. We were train hoppers. Okay, now you've got people who are homeless who have paid their rents on their homes and their apartments, and they're getting outbid, and they're saying, well, get out of here, we don't need you anymore. Now, granted, they have the money, but not to pay the higher rents. When are you and the state of Utah going to tell the Apartment Renters Association to start lowering the rents?
Yeah, thanks, Donald. Donald, can I respond?
Okay. 2, as far as the homeless is concerned, we do a pretty good job of taking care of ourselves. Unfortunately, don't get me wrong, you have a lot of police officers that do a fine job. They got my commemoration. But you've also got your ones out there who you might refer to as your bad apples, who enjoy pushing the homeless around. Myself, I was over by St. Vincent's, where it's hard for me to walk. I have melanoma in both my legs, ankles, and feet. All right? I've had 2 heart attacks and a stroke. And the closest resource I had was over at St. Vincent's. Every time you have an abatement, it drags us further and further away. Okay? I can only walk so far. I'm not the only one. I volunteer, I say I live in a tent. It doesn't go up until 8 o'clock at night, and it comes down before 8 o'clock in the morning.
Donald, can I address this?
As far as this site is concerned,
and we're going to get back to the press questions.
You're going to sit there and tell me you're going to give 50 people a place to live out of 7,500.
Yeah.
Who is the one that's going to do the picking and choosing?
Yes. Donald, thank you. There's a lot of questions in there. We totally agree that there's not enough, and that there's more than there was in 1983. And I think it's actually been since about 1983, when Travelers Aid and what became the Road Home was opened, that you've had the state, the county, and even sister cities working together the way that we are finally to say, there's not enough. We all need to step up, including the state legislature, who finally has, in a big way, $105 million way in just the last 18 months. And 50 beds here is not, as Councilmember Petro said, the solution for everybody, but it's the beginning of a new service model that we haven't ever seen in the state of Utah. And it's on top of 600 shelter beds that will be opening in November with the winter overflow plan. And West Valley City and other cities are stepping up. And that's more winter beds than we've had since the road home was closed in 2019. On top of that are 200 additional Code Blue beds. Thank you for doing that. On top of that are 200 additional Code Blue beds that the Department of Health with the state of Utah will determine when those open. Media, any questions from you? Yes.
What exactly are you envisioning for each unit? Are you thinking like a trailer kind or the pod? What is the goal for that?
You know, we would hope that we'd be able to be really specific with you about that, but as the state pursues the purchase of those units, we have to make sure also that they're rated for snow load being in the state of Utah, and recognizing that they're created all over the country and not always for certain climates like this. And so we're hoping to have the specifics and the model exactly for you in the coming days, but that's something the state's working through. And as Wayne said, 4 solid doors, a roof, a mini split that provides heating and cooling, separate doors of entry, keyed. There's a window, there will be a bed and space for storage, also electrical outlet for charging people's devices. And beyond that, we'll have to wait a little while before we can secure the contract on those. Yes?
I guess if this works out well, do you envision seeing more of these
Yes.
in the city, and how soon could that happen?
Yes, absolutely. That is absolutely our intention. And let me mention with the tiny home community, separate project, similar approach, where we recognize that offering someone a bed among 50 other potential beds in one room is not an option for a lot of people, justifiably so. And so expanding the type of opportunities that we have with a lower barrier to get people into shelter as they should and connect with services, we want to see the tiny home community not only grow where it's at into the 400 full units that it has the capacity of, we want to see more temporary and then transitional shelter communities like this all around the state of Utah. They should be. People are losing housing in every city in the state of Utah. And they shouldn't have to leave their communities and come into Ogden, Salt Lake City, or St. George to get services. They should be able to stabilize in their communities. And I think when I defined our success of this operation and this pilot, it will also be to prove that it can work in other parts of the state.
Couple minutes, guys.
You two have anybody else who hasn't answered? Okay.
Yeah, I have a question for Wayne. 10 days for the RFP process seems like a really tight turnaround. I'm wondering if you have a service provider in mind already.
We don't. We respect the procurement process, and it is a short turnaround because we don't have a lot of time. So,
If you don't get anyone, I guess.
well, we'll have to. We've done that before, where we'll reissue it again and maybe give it a little bit more time, because a qualified provider, is going to be important to this process to manage this site over the winter and to the long-term success, as the mayor has articulated. We want to use this as a model, all over the state. And I just have to say that I spend a lot of time doing street outreach every week, gotten to know a lot of people who are experiencing homelessness. And the biggest complaint people have is they don't want to go and be in a congregate shelter. They would feel safer if they had their own individual unit. So we're responding to that information. And so we're hoping to make this a model, and we feel reasonably confident that we're going to get some response.
Is it a local service provider you're hoping for, or are you open to
We can't really pick who responds, so it could be somebody potentially that's not local, and all will be evaluated fairly.
Sophia?
$10,000 to $15,000 per unit. For me,
Yeah, so you identified that when the operator selected a unit
It is a tight, no question. It is a tight turnaround, but we've done that with our winter overflow plans for the last couple, at least last year.
Well, and some people died last year because of delays and that. So is that a concern?
Well, it was not really our delays. It was that our winter plan last year of 350 beds, more than we'd ever planned before, was insufficient. So, that's why we're responding with more beds this winter. 600 is on the plan for the Salt Lake County winter response plan, and then this will be an additional 50 units.
Last one, guys. Monthly.
I'm not a Mayor Mendenhall, Chief Brown, you can speak to this, but what are safety plans around your security, patrolling? What are you hoping for in this area to keep people live here safe, but also around home areas?
Yeah, we will have increased 24-hour patrol in this area. And as we said, we'll also be coordinating, we already are, with the downtown ambassadors and the Volunteers of America street outreach. But Salt Lake City Police will be present in this area. Thank you all for coming out today. And one other part that I just have to mention, the SLC Corps, which is our volunteer coordinating. Check it out through the mayor's office if you want. It's a way to stay informed. If you want to volunteer as this comes together, there will be opportunities to help put the community together, put packets together for the individual units. So SLC Corps is a way to stay engaged with volunteer opportunities as we develop. Thank you for coming out today.
Thank you, guys. Just one note there on the end. On the FAQ I handed out a bit ago, you'll see a website, slc.gov/temporary shelter. A lot more question and answers that we put up here just a bit ago if you guys have any additional questions. Our liaisons as well will be sticking around and continuing to canvass the neighborhood throughout the remainder of today, tomorrow, and into next week as well. Thanks.